I might talk about this finger.
No, I certainly I know.
No, I went through a detox with this. When I was 3 years old, my father bought a new push mower. I mean, it was the old push mower, no electric, no motor. And my two older brothers got to try it out after my father. And then the neighbor boy, I was next in line. It was my lawnmower, right? So the neighbor boy went over and he grabbed it to push it after one of my older brothers. So I put my hands right down in it and cut my finger off. So they grafted skin from here and put it on here. So a year after I started eating raw meat, the end of it, that graft fell off. It inflamed, turned red, got very bloody around there, and it just dropped off. And before that, before it dropped off, it turned as hard as rock. I could put my finger through glass. But after the graft fell off, then it was soft in its normal sensitivity and everything. So, but when they did that, when I cut it off, my mother wasn't home at the time. My father doesn't know anything about anything except, his inventions. So he stuck my finger in a cold pan of water down, so of course it's going to bleed like crazy. So it bled and bled and bled. I lost a lot of blood. But when I got to the hospital finally, because he couldn't stop the bleeding, the young intern, they're going to do something cool. They think their ideas are new and genius. He took the tetanus shot and he injected me all around the cuticle and with a painkiller to do the grafting here. So about 2 months ago, December 28th, I think it was December 24th or 28th, the finger started inflaming. And one doctor I know said, "Oh, you got an ingrown fingernail." No ingrown fingernail. It was detoxing. You could smell those same odors of the tetanus shot and the anesthetic that was shot in. It was reeking, and it just inflamed. It got very big. It pussed finally out this side after about 3 weeks, and it warped. And you can see there's a hole in here. The body used so many minerals that it left the nail very small down here in between the cuticle and a little space out. So that'll take about 6 months to grow out. It was extremely painful. I dip my finger in some warm water, hot water sometimes, just to make it feel better so it wouldn't be so painful. And you can see it wasn't a hangnail, an ingrown nail, because you go like this and you can see the nail. So, of course, the doctor's never going to admit that it was the tetanus shot and the anesthetic. They poo-poo anything like that. Because, of course, if we could prove it, we'd be able to sue them. We'd be able to sue them. Hello there. We only have seating back here right now. Will somebody move this cooler off to under that, or back there somewhere? There we go. Terrific. So that was my latest heavy detox. A bit painful, but it's just now subsiding. No more pain at all. Just a little deformed nail, and that'll grow out probably within 6 months. It takes about 6 months to grow out a nail. However, that growth is in about 3 weeks. So I'd probably be able to do it in 4 months because I'm eating so much bone marrow. The bone marrow has stem cells. My hair is growing 1.5 inches a month as long as I'm eating a lot of bone marrow. I eat a package a day. So, about half a cup a day. Pardon? No, I'll eat a meat meal and then eat that after, or eat a little bit while I'm eating the meat. Yeah. So if I have 2 meat meals, I'll break it up into 2 meat meals.
Can't you freeze that? Isn't that the only thing you can freeze? Is that okay? You can?
You have to flash freeze it.
you
Can't freeze it.
Erica told me that. Really? No?
I don't know who I didn't tell her that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
I said that, sperm, ovum, and, and anything with stem cells in it, if you flash freeze, it will hold up.
Freezing it right.
It has to be, flash freezing means you freeze it within maybe 20 minutes. So you have to have a certain kind of process to do that. Because normally it'll take 24, 36 hours to freeze in a freezer. It's a whole different situation.
Okay.
Pardon?
How long do those packages of, how long, you eat one a day? How long do those packages of bone marrow last?
Depends on if you like high bone marrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can eat it that way. Better, worse, doesn't matter.
You probably will do a slight bit of detoxing, but you have to remember, anytime you eat anything high, it is pre-digested. When you vomit, it stinks, right? It stinks like bile, it stinks like rotten meat, it stinks like all of that, because that's the process, bacteria digesting your food. When your food goes in, where's the first place it goes? Into the mouth. You've got 2,300 bacteria per 1 million parts of saliva. That's a lot of bacteria. That's more than a dog and a cat has. We have more bacteria in our mouth than any other animal. So what does that tell you? That means that we need acidic foods that the bacteria feeds on, and that's meat and dairy. So when it goes down into the stomach, the hydrochloric acid breaks up food particles to make them into smaller molecules so the bacteria can feed on the food molecule. But almost all digestion is done by the bacteria. So their waste is our food. And if you look at that, we eat the urine and feces and sweat of bacteria. That's our food. When you think about it that way, you won't be so disgusted in the future when you think of bacteria as our main focus and our main digestive process.
Why is your figure doing this now? You've been doing this for a long time.
Well, I've had so many things. Chemotherapy was AZT. AZT is the most toxic chemo ever created, and it was outlawed a year after I had it. But they brought it out for AIDS patients. That's why 99% of them died. Because they gave them they had $200 million of AZT in the vaults. They needed to use it. So they used it on undesirables, mainly homosexuals who had AIDS. And they were given it an hepatitis B vaccine. So it was just an annihilation. It was a process of bacterial warfare experimentation.
Can I ask about the bone marrow one more time? One more thing about the bone marrow. Should you take it out of the bone immediately when you get it, or should
if you remove it from the bone and put it in a glass, it won't get as ripe. I've had it last 2 weeks, as long as I kept it refrigerated, nice and clean and fresh.
Okay, so because it gets hard and then you can't get it out of the bone, that's why I'm asking that.
Right.
Okay.
I always leave mine out and then take it out, put it in jars.
Okay.
Can we find that anywhere else besides Ross?
Well, you can have it sent to you. Buy it at, he gets it from North Star Bison.
There's bone marrow at Whole Foods. I don't know.
That's not organic.
The one, really? You said it? No.
Whole Foods is just a racket, Texas. It's owned by the Bass family, and I was one of the Bass children back in the late 70s, and they are all just about money. They'll tell any lie they can just to make money. And they're into it for the money. They don't care a lick about. The daughter I went with did. In fact, she did the raw diet with me. But the rest of the family, I think it's all silly and ridiculous. But they'll make money on it. Okay, now I'm going to go around the room and ask questions. Everybody get your question ready. Helena.
If somebody's thyroid got filled with an argon 131 because they got food for hypothyroid, can it be reversed?
She asked, is it possible to reverse a toxic thyroid condition that was caused by chemical reaction? I've seen even the finger. You see, it's a good finger now. I can feel it's sensitive. I can give the good finger. I can do all kinds of things with that finger now. So anything can be healed. But remember, the endocrine glands are all for emergency purposes. You're not supposed to have thyroxine. You're not supposed to have adrenaline in your blood if you're a healthy person. If you're eating a lot of crap and you're always making your body fatigued and tired and toxic, you're going to have a lot of hormones because you won't have any energy if you don't. So if you have a low thyroid, a low thyroxine, low adrenaline level, low testosterone, low estrogen, that doesn't mean you're deficient. Only if you have symptoms, like if you have adrenal fatigue, you won't be able to get off the couch. You won't be able to get out of bed. That's a sign you've got a problem. Then you can eat adrenal glands to help boost that, to help to use the adrenaline until you get healthier.
This is somebody, they actually use argon 131 to kill the thyroid.
You mean the radioactive isotope?
Yeah.
I have seen anything come back, even if it's by radiation, I've seen it restored. Now, they gave me 10 weeks of radiation therapy in the stomach, all the way through to my back. Took a lot of time for my back to heal from that radiation therapy. But it can still heal, it just takes more time. Radiation is probably one of the worst. And then chemo would be second worst. Do you have a question? Not yet? Okay. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Is there any way to keep cheese from molding?
He wants to know if there's any way to keep cheese from molding. That's the process of cheese. You know, if you get American cheese, it's not. The process of making cheese is you take the dairy, you rake it into curds and whey, you filter it out, you dry out your curds, and you put it in a cave. That's the way cheeses are made. Instead of putting Lactobacillus bulgaris, Cartosicus, acidophilus in the milk, you're introducing a mold to pre-digest it the same way the bacteria does. So that's the only way that you can use hard cheeses, that you can digest them, is if there's mold in them. Well, there's one way. You can eat a little bit of honey with your hard cheeses, and you'll be able to digest them. Or you pasteurize them. You make it from pasteurized milk. Of course, when that happens, the cheese is going to absorb toxins in the body and then redigest it, reabsorb those chemicals, those toxins back into the body. When cheese is raw and unsalted, the body does not digest it. It uses it to attract toxins out of the neurological, lymphatic, and the bloodstream as it passes even through the mouth, pulls it out of those systems all the way through until it leaves the body. If you eat honey directly with the cheese, then you will digest the cheese, and if there are any toxins in it, you'll reabsorb those toxins. So I say eat cheese with honey only twice a day, about 30 minutes after a meat meal. And that's to get your calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, all those good concentrated minerals supplementation. So, but otherwise the cheese won't be as digestible without having fungus or mold in it. If you don't want it to mold, don't refrigerate it. Molds grow in cold environments. So if you leave the cheese out to get warm, mold won't grow.
How long can you store cheese at room temperature?
Until it gets very cold in your house, and then the mold will start growing.
Degrees you store for a year?
I don't know about that. I've had it up to 6 months in my experiment.
80 degrees, it just gets hot in the summer.
Oh, that restricts it more from getting fungus, getting mold. It's tastier.
Does it ever get toxic to a point?
Now, just remember, raw dairy never goes bad. It just turns into cheese.
But you told us at one point to cut off the mold from the edges of it.
Well, when you've got hairs, little fuzzy stuff all over the outside, those are mushrooms. Those are the spores. That can cause a heavy detoxification. So you just scrape the outer stuff off.
So it's okay. I mean, if you wanted to be detox, you could eat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not okay. Okay.
Right.
Or
Or
if
you
it-
may get strong fatigue. You also may get diarrhea or vomiting. So if you're ready for it, do it.
Or if it doesn't bother you, I know people who've been eating the moldy cheese for ages. They said, it never bothers me.
Well,
So
look
it's
at the
okay.
Germans, you know. I mean, they're very healthy with all that really raunchy, stinky, awful smelling cheese. And that's all from molds.
So there's no harm in it, really?
No.
Then, no? Okay.
No, it just can be too much of a detox for some people. David, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I've had this really good egg supplier for like about 5-6 years. He gives the unwashed eggs that buy them by the case. He doesn't feed them any soy or anything, just corn, and he says he gives them worms also. But I had a problem last August. You know, I buy a case, and usually I finish the case, and a couple go bad, and you know, and I'm to the point where I love these.
Raw eggs don't go bad; they just go stinky.
Well, it would go to become a rotten egg, the classic rotten egg,
Right.
and I love classic rotten eggs. But in August, I was quite slow at eating my case of eggs, and something very strange started happening to these eggs. Instead of going bad, because they were sitting, it was in August, it was hot. They're in my kitchen. I don't have air conditioning in my place, but it's not direct sun or anything like that. It's hot, but instead of becoming a classic rotten egg, it would just break open and become this smelly brown.
Brown.
Smelly brown and full of maggots. And now I'm wondering whether I can. I've still been buying eggs from this guy since August, and is there a problem with his eggs?
No, anytime you crack a shell and you've got it warm enough, there are those little bitty fruit flies that will lay their larvae, and they can get into the cracks because they're very tiny. They're not like a regular fly.
But instead of going bad, all these eggs, dozens of them, started turning into this stinky brown thing of just full of maggots.
Good stuff.
I could have eaten that.
Yeah, absolutely. See, a lot of
Have a good time, man.
Louis was right
a
the
lot of
first time.
that brown stuff is the maggots pre-digesting all that nutrients. Their waste is usually brown. There are some funguses in China when you have the century egg. It turns black inside and not brown. But it's either white, brown, or black, depending upon which egg you're buying. And that's what it's from.
That's a classic bad egg. With
Right.
that stinky, smelly,
Those
completely
are the
brown
maggots
thing.
pre-digesting.
They pre-digested the whole darn egg.
What do your bowel movements smell like?
I don't smell them very often.
But I mean, if you shit in the yard, what would it smell like? It smells like shit, right?
Yeah.
It smells pretty foul.
Oh, I get it.
Well, that's the food that's most absorbable. Once the E. coli and bacteria has broken everything down, the body holds the fecal matter up in the sigmoid colon to absorb all that foul, stinky stuff, because that's reduced it to the molecules to feed the cells in the body.
Would it have been healthy to eat that brown, smelly,
With
maggot-ridden
the
stuff?
maggots, too.
With the maggots?
Absolutely.
So I could have just thrown it in and into a
Absolutely.
jar and gotten around to eating one of these days?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with my egg supplier then?
No. Okay. That's normal in the summertime if the egg shell got cracked.
But what if it... how do I know they got cracked? It just sat there and...
You won't know. You have to have a magnifying glass, a pretty powerful one, and see if the eggs got cracked. See, when it gets very hot, they're fragile, and all they have to do is just bump each other, and they'll put hairline cracks.
Yeah, they seem to just explode on their own.
And I do that. I'll do that. I'll take them in the hot summer, and I'll take a spoon and just tap them. And I can hear that crack go through it. And then I know I'm going to have
But sometimes I'd like to have a whole plate of these things, and they'd all go bad, the whole thing.
Well, that's a week of good or pre-digested egg.
But there's a difference between a rotten egg and these smelly brown things. They're the same.
No, they're not the same because you've got the parasites, the maggots eating one, and you got fungus eating the other.
Okay.
And bacteria and fungus.
So, I know you've always talked about how we should get parasites in our body. Is this a good way to get parasites in our body?
You can't get that parasite is not an internal parasite.
Okay, so that parasite it's going to be digested by our bacteria.
Right, yeah.
Another meat.
It's like that tribe that lives on maggots. They hunt, they slice the meat very thinly, they lay it on a grill of twigs, and then the maggots come and lay their eggs, their larvae, and it grows, and then they'll eat the maggots on the 5th day before they grow wings. And they get big, juicy maggots, and that's all they eat. And they can run 32, 35 miles an hour. Everything is liquid and finely digested when it's in a maggot.
So that's good stuff to eat.
Absolutely good stuff to eat.
Detox those, you eat raw eggs like that?
Not usually. And some people, if they're getting ready to go into a detoxification, and you've pre-digested the food that thoroughly, you could create some kind of detoxification, but that doesn't mean that it would normally do that.
But that stuff's done so bad.
Yeah. The things that will always cause detoxification is fermented fruit and eating too much fruit. It turns into alcohol in the body. That causes detoxification.
Does that apply with green fruit as well?
Even green fruit, if it turns if you're eating too much of it, and it ferments.
Oh, is that why you get a stomach ache when you're a kid and eat too much fruit?
Yep. The body's trying to reject it. Jim, do you have a question?
Yeah. It seems like when I wake up in the morning, I'm the sharpest that I am the whole day. And I kind of gradually deteriorate.
You don't.
Yeah. and I get tired by 5 or so in the afternoon. I take a nap. I'm good for the night. But, if somehow I don't get the nap or I don't get enough sleep or whatever, then I'm dangerous.
People should always take naps. Every other animal in the world takes naps. In Mexico, they have the siesta every day.
Is there something dietary-wise that would keep me sharp throughout the day?
Well, if I want to do that, I suck on an egg, and I don't eat large meals. I'll eat no more than a half a cup of food at a time. And I've done that up to 22 days, only sleeping an hour a day, 10 minutes at a time. Hour and a half a day, 10 minutes at a time. And then when I went back to sleeping, I didn't sleep more than my normal 5 hours. But you just have to keep the body hungry enough not to get lazy and tired. So you feed it half a cup at a time. Well, you could probably do 3/4 of a cup. You're a larger person than I. But it's better to take a nap. 90% of healing happens in the sleep state. Most people need a nap. Pardon? If what?
Would that not interfere with your night sleep?
No, usually not unless you're sleeping 3-4 hours nap, and then at night you won't sleep as much. No.
What's the nap
Right.
for? What's the nap for? How much time?
10 minutes to 10 to 60 minutes. I mean, if you're really exhausted and you've been through heavy detoxification, a couple of hours might be necessary. You can still get your 8 hours at night. But again, never sleep, never go 5 hours without eating, because the protein level bottoms out. You remember that.
Does that 5 hours count juice? I mean, you have juice and that.
5 hours from the juice? Yeah. This is fine.
So I should eat eggs as like a little between meal.
Yeah, I mean, you could eat an egg like every 30 minutes to keep your brain power going, to remain sharp. Okay. Do you have a question? I didn't ask you because you were chewing away, but...
Get back with me. I'm
Okay. Steve, do you have a question?
Yeah, I got these spots on my eyes, and I thought that was from being in the sun. But I remember you saying something that they were like liver cells or something like that migrated.
Well,
I can't remember exactly what you were talking about.
he asked about what they call liver spots around his eyes. A lot of us get them after the age of usually 45, and then after the age of 45, because the body throws off glandular cells that can no longer function as a glandular cell, but still could be used as a skin cell. And they'll usually clump together because they like each other. They're of the similar species of cells. So they clump together, and then you have what they call sunspots or liver spots. So it's really, it's a matter of the cells, the liver cells or pancreatic or spleen. What happens is, or gonads, whatever, those cells are no longer producing hormones. They're not dead, and the body says, let's put you where you can do, some good, but since you're not functioning as a gland, get the hell out. And then so the body can reproduce cells that will actually produce glandular activity. And the liver has to make a lot of bile to handle fats. It has to make 60 varieties of bile. So, and most people are lucky if they make 15, 20 varieties. So if your body, as your body gets healthier, or as the body gets sicker, for most people, the liver starts throwing off its cells. Pancreas does too, and the pancreas is very dark cells, and they create those skin spots.
Nothing you can do to get rid of them.
You can put vinegar on them, it'll usually bleach them out. Vinegar and then coconut cream.
Okay.
And they'll usually
Not like
bleach
what you
them
do
out.
with the bowl.
Yeah, right. It usually won't get rid of them completely because those cells, what you are is bleaching them when you put the vinegar on, but you're not really changing the structure of the cell. That cell is a dark cell. It's like taking a very tan, dark person and keeping them out of the sun and putting vinegar on their skin or some kind of bleaching compound, but as soon as they hit that sun, they'll be dark again.
So is it a problem, or it just doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter at all. It's just
doesn't
you're more,
like the way you like looks.
you've got a pattern. More colorful, more
More
interesting.
So if you were to try to lose liver,
Well, if you heal the liver, you still may be throwing off live liver cells that don't produce bile. So that could be a 40-year process. Probably after the 40 years it wouldn't happen again, but I don't know. I've got 14 more years to go to finish my 40 years. Do you have a question?
Okay, this is sort of Blaine's question. From a particular diet, and she doesn't like eating protein. And she's not absorbing this last time.
Well, I said she wasn't healing.
Healing.
Because she wasn't eating the protein.
But
She was cleansing but not healing.
Well, this is what she asked me to ask you. What she does, she puts on ginger juice. I juice the ginger. We make a no salt mustard and honey. Now, is that changing all that stuff to bruising instead of healing?
No.
No. It's fine. Okay with that?
Yeah. Well, it depends on how much she uses.
She hates that meat. She puts tons of it. And I go through 4 gallons of honey a month. A month.
Whoa!
We buy it by the 4-gallon case from John. And I go through one every 4 to 6 weeks. And that's mostly her. I mean, she loves that stuff. She can't stand your diet.
Can we clear that off so they can sit? Clear that, because there's room over there to sit. You can put some of the stuff on top of that cooler.
Can you sit on the floor?
Well, it might be cold on the butt. Vinegar, you shouldn't have much vinegar with red meat. You can have vinegar with fish or poultry with that as long as it's not too much. But
we're cutting out the red meat. She's better at knifing down that red meat.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hyperactive woman was good.
And well, now she's giving me this routine that I'm bored. Meat back in.
Well, give her something to do.
Yeah, right. I work for a living, you see. And she's retired. And,
You have to find something to do.
Gotta find a new boyfriend, I think, during the day.
Or a hobby. Paint, golf, who knows what.
Part of the problem because Nicholas is getting really old and he's not running her around like he used to.
Yeah.
And,
You need a new dog? That's what you need? Yeah, there's a golden retriever that never has had shots, and somebody's moving and they want a home for it.
I don't think we want a big dog.
That's a big dog. No, big dog. Okay, I gotta move on. Do you have a question? Okay. Do you have a question, Mike?
Yeah, I have narrow disc in my back. I guess your folks, he said papaya was good. I don't know if you have it.
Papaya helps clean the back. Helps clean it. Pineapple helps rebuild vertebrae and cartilage in any bone. So if you want to clean the back, just remember, anytime you have pain, you have toxins stored somewhere. So you really want to clean a little bit first and then rebuild. So you could do a couple of days of custard and a couple of days with coconut cream and pineapple with a little bit of dairy cream. And just keep doing that every week. 4 days with that routine for the back.
What about the back?
As long as you if you have damaged vertebrae, you want to make sure that your back is relaxed and all the muscles are stretched first, that they're warm and relaxed. That means either getting to a bathtub for 20, 30 minutes before you do stretching, or put a hot water bottle back there and let it heat for about 10, 15 minutes. And then you do your stretching. And when I had the back trouble after the radiation therapy, I was in such severe pain that I couldn't move the lower part of my body. I crawled on the floor with my elbows and dragged my lower part of my body. It was that painful. Then when I learned that I could sleep, and I was only able to sleep 10 minutes at a time, so I'd wake with excruciating pain after every 10 minutes. I lived like that for a year, suicidal as hell because I couldn't sleep, and it was very painful. So I took baths. I learned that if I got into a bath and I couldn't get out of the bath, and I just had to keep warming it, and I realized that I was becoming buoyant in the water, so it took all that pressure off my back. So it alleviated almost 80% of the back pain. And then when I got out, I did yoga stretches. I do the spinal twist on both sides and do the plow. Everybody know what the plow is?
Yes.
So when you lie on your back, you raise your legs and your buttock and your back in the air, and then you either put your knees to your ears or your toes out on the floor behind your head. So you're like, this is your head, and this is your shoulders like this, and you got your back going up like this, and your arms over, and your feet down here, so it's over your head like that.
On your neck.
Pardon?
How is that on your neck?
It stretches it wonderfully, because you have vertebrae here too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people can be very tense in their neck, and it causes the whole back to tense. And if your back tenses, what happens? The vertebrae shift, and they'll pinch the nerves. And that's what causes all that bone pain. It can also cause a wearing of the cartilage. So you want to keep those stretched and relaxed. Okay? Do you have a question, John?
I get bit by a rattlesnake. What's the pain?
Well,
What was the question?
he says if you get bit by a rattlesnake, what's the best course of action? Take a gun. Well, when I was bit by a rattlesnake, I didn't do anything. I just left it alone. But he didn't stay in me. He didn't put much venom in me. But the American Indians, they would pack it with mud. They would cut it open, pack it with mud. What they normally do in our hospitals is if they don't have a venom antigen, they use hydrochloric acid. Now, I got bitten by a scorpion, and I was getting pretty sick from it when I was a fruitarian. So I went to a health food store and got some HCl, some hydrochloric acid, and I mixed it, and it was causing me to swell. It looked like I had elephantiasis. My balls were this big. My penis was this big. Everything hurt. I mean, my legs were out to here, and it was going on and on. It didn't go away. So I went to the health food store and got some hydrochloric acid. Then I went to a hospital, and I stole a hypodermic. And I took a mixture of fresh grapes, squeezed the juice out of them, because the grape juice is almost as refined as glucose water. So it's almost exactly as it occurs in the blood, if you don't get any particles in it. So I had filtered it and sifted it through many, many layers of cloth, so I'd have all the particles out of it. I mixed a tiny bit of the hydrochloric acid with it, and then injected it into my thigh. And it was gone in about 12 hours. And I had been suffering about a week from it. So I thought maybe it was filaria, which are the parasites from mosquitoes, but they are so finite and small they can't cause that kind of swelling. Even though they blame elephantiasis on mosquito filaria. Again, I think that's another myth of the medical profession, where people usually get elephantiasis in Africa and those tropical climates. They've gotten a yellow fever vaccine, some kind of vaccine, and they're reacting to that, or the malaria drug. Of course, the medical environment is always going to blame something in nature, so they don't get the blame for it. And so you'll be afraid of nature, and you'll keep making the same mistakes and get worse and worse, and have to go for their help all the time. It's a sad reality. That's the way it works.
What would be the ratio of hydrochloric acid to grape juice?
Well, I just did it as a matter of instinct. I probably used the hydrochloric acid tablets that I got for 50 milligrams, and I probably used about 50th of 1 to 2 tablespoons of the grape juice. But it's better if you just take the hydrochloric acid. I didn't realize it, but the body, I learned from the Indians, that the poisons dump into the stomach no matter what kind of venom it is. So the venom goes to the stomach, especially if you have dairy. Dairy will draw it to the stomach. The Indians taught me that. So you can just drink milk, cheese, will draw it to the stomach, absorb it. Hydrochloric acid will dump from your stomach. But remember, I had no hydrochloric acid in my stomach because of the surgery. So I didn't have that option. So I took the tablet. And I injected it. Didn't have to do that. I could have just taken it because the poisons still dump into my stomach. I just don't have the hydrochloric acid there. Having the small intestines and not in the stomach.
Maybe a last resort.
Yeah. Another thing you can do is I've had other people who were bitten by black widows and scorpions, like here in Malibu Mountains. And I suggested they chew some corn, put it on the wound, and also eat corn and drink some beet juice. Both of them have hydrochloric acid precursors. So those are the two foods that help you generate a lot of hydrochloric acid. Do you have a question?
If
you had just 2 foods you could recommend during pregnancy, what would they be? And are there any foods that normally are on your diet that would become contraindicated?
That would become what?
Contraindicated that you would take off?
She asked, what are 2 good foods during pregnancy, and are there any foods on the diet that are counterindicative for pregnancy? Now, the medical profession will tell you, don't eat any raw meat. That's so your baby can be stupid. All the children that were born on this diet with the mothers eating raw meat are very advanced children. One of them, when he turned 5, he entered the 4th grade. I've got a 19-year-old that graduated from Yale 2 years ago. So you have to, and all these children are very, very bright unless the mother smokes. The mother smokes during pregnancy before, even if she's smoking a few years before, the child is not as smart. Because those cars get in there and start blocking neurological transmission. So no, there's no usually for women who are pregnant, it depends upon the toxicity in the mother. If she has a lot of toxicity in the body, you want to eat a lot of cheese often so you don't go into morning sickness. Morning sickness is the body detoxing very toxic substances that dump into the stomach. Vomit, 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 because the body does not, or the baby, the placenta does not want those poisons going into the baby. So the mother has to vomit and vomit and vomit. So if she's eating cheese regularly, like a little piece every hour, it'll help keep the baby strong. Now the American Indians that would eat cooked foods, some cooked foods, the mother, gestating mother would always take a little bit of clay every day. Moist clay right from the bed, not right from the river. So it was already full of bacteria, not dry clay. And take a teaspoon to a tablespoon, depending upon the size of the woman. So those are 2 that will help protect the baby. As far as feeding the baby, making it strong, eggs and meat, of course. And it depends on what type of baby you want. If you're a high athletic person, you'll probably want a high athletic baby. Or else you get frustrated with a baby like me who just laid around because I had no activity rate. And my parents were very active people. So I was always a big frustration for them because they had to drag me, get me, motivate me, not in a nice way, to be fast and hurry up. So, if you want a child that's more active, eat more red meat. Not a lot, but let's say 50% maximum if you want an athletic child. If you want a brainy child, stay away from red meat. It depends on your energy level, how much. You can see those kids that drive parents mad because they've got too much energy. That can be very taxing and wearing and drive you crazy and end up punishing the child a lot. So I would say never over 50-50, half red meat, half chicken and or poultry and seafood. Let's say minimum of red meat, 2 meat meals a week. 2 red meat meals a week. Beef, lamb, buffalo, venison, whatever. About 2 of those a week, minimum. And that way the placenta will be strong, because the placenta acts as the baby's liver until it's born. Okay, do you have a question?
Sometimes there are different conditions that require conflicting things. For instance, in my case, I need to build the calcium, build the bones from the osteoporosis and everything, but I keep detoxing, especially recently with a lot of, the old-fashioned cold and all that stuff, and so I'm eating a lot of the apple cider vinegar, and that's contraindicated for the osteoporosis. So how do you kind of balance that situation and all that? I mean,
Cleverly.
we sort of talked about with this before, but I just want to make sure that
You just have to do it cleverly. You have to make sure that you're not having more than if you get any kind of gum sensitivity, you're having too much vinegar, going the wrong way.
I don't have that.
Then that is a good key to watch.
Okay.
If your gums get sensitive, your gums are bleeding, it means you're having too much vinegar, you're eating something that will cause a breakdown in the calcium in the body. If you are going through a detox, though, from the brain, and you're throwing out heavy metals, that's still, you don't want a lot of vinegar in a period like that.
Oh, but in your book there's all that stuff about the sinuses and the this, with all the vinegar juice in the morning, the vinegar and lemon and...
Yeah, but I'm talking about if you're bleeding heavily.
Oh, okay.
Out the gums.
Okay, but if I'm not bleeding in the gums, then I would do that vinegar or lemon.
Yep, that's fine.
Does that mean canker sores
too?
too?
You do it for as many days as you want, because one time it's something like 3 or 4 days, and I ended up like going a week if it doesn't matter, or a week and a
Usually
half.
2 weeks is the maximum you can do that. And then you're going to start decalcifying or demineralizing the body.
And then I could go back to the little bit of apple cider vinegar in the juice, and I started to play again, in the morning to the first thing. Okay, so just sort of do what I'm doing. Is there any other?
You're doing fine. Sounds like you're doing fine.
Okay. I'm so nervous about that. I'm getting my bone density test, by the way, in a couple of weeks. So I'm curious.
How long has it been since you've done the program? For that?
2.5 years, I think.
Then you should have some
I had
results.
6 months before I did the last bone density test, and they only do it every 2 years. So I'm about to do another one.
How are you doing your bone density test? Are you having an X-ray?
I don't think it is. I think it's that other thing.
Usually ultrasound doesn't give you a good bone registration. UCLA does it in water. It's a very accurate one in water. It's ultrasound in water. That's very accurate.
So
But
typical bone density doesn't...
it's either X-ray or,
I think it's, but they say bone density is not an X-ray because they can't use X-ray to get bone density.
Oh, yes, they can. They do it all the time. It's mainly what they do.
Well, then it's not a bone density test.
Get it? You had an X-ray for your bone density too, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Absolutely. At
That's
Washington, Washington Medical Center, Medical University in St. Louis. I refuse to do it.
So you
That
don't
way.
think so?
I won't get an X-ray. Yeah. Oh, no. You have a
Actually,
question?
had other question.
Let me go around first. Jill, do you have a question?
Talk to us about skin wrinkles. Aging.
Well, I've talked about that also in in my newsletter. Bone marrow helps get rid of wrinkles very well. Sperm and ovum. Those are your best bets for it. Primal facial body care cream is also helpful. But what has worked the most for most people that I've seen, the quickest is bone marrow. The oily bone marrow.
Apply it on the face, you mean?
Yeah. Especially rub it in gently to the wrinkled areas. Anybody know Erica at the Rawson? Okay. Erica was one of those people who would never gain the amount of weight that I wanted. To get rid of her dry skin. She was excessively dry. Lots of wrinkles, lots of dry skin. She did enough to her whole body, lubricated, but never her face. Remember that the most toxins you have, metallic toxins, are in the brain. So when they leave out the mouth, the gums, the tongue, and the salivary glands, it pulls all the fats out of the face. That's why all tribes, all people wrinkle in the face first. Because of all the contaminants in the brain that dump out the mouth. So eating enough usually keep the skin from wrinkling and lipidizing the skin in the face usually takes a tremendous amount of weight, 25 pounds overweight, to do that. So I started experimenting with bone marrow, so she agreed to do it. And within 2.5 months of putting the bone marrow on her face a couple of times a week, 80% of the wrinkles went away, 80% of the dryness. And she had been, I would say, anywhere from, let's say, 70% on the diet for about 6 years. As soon as she started doing that bone marrow on her face, big difference, huge difference. She brags about doing it.
Looks good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, best she ever had. Because you'd always see that dry, wrinkled, crinkled face. And the rest of the body was pretty good. So now that's taking up. Pardon? Well, she does it probably 3 days a week. You can do it every day. If you have the bone marrow.
How fast does that absorb?
It depends upon the skin. If I put it on thickly, it may take hours, 5-6 hours to absorb. If I put it on thinly, it will be absorbed in about 20-30 minutes. Especially if I rub it in gentle. Okay, John, you have a question?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll get kind of an achiness in my teeth. And one thing I noticed is if I drink coconut water, it goes away. So I had a couple questions. Is there something else that'll also help with that? Because I'm assuming minerals. I'm getting more minerals. And then the other thing, can you talk about coconut water at all? I don't need to talk about it.
Well, coconut water is water. Of course, there are more minerals in it than your normal well water. And of course, many more minerals than rainwater. Rainwater is mainly distilled water with tons of bacteria in it. When it rains, it dissolves rock, and then the minerals are freed up from that, feeds plants. That's how plants eat. So all water, even coconut water, is a solvent. But you've been around a lot of chemicals in your experimentation. You need some solvent to free up some of those minerals so they can so they're not all using up all of your food minerals. So you can do it that way. You could also start eating little amounts of cheese all day long.
With honey?
No.
For the minerals? No,
No.
cheese to absorb.
Cheese
Okay.
to absorb so you're using the cheese without honey to absorb the toxins, so you're reserving the minerals in your food to feed your cells. Okay, so that's how that works. Anybody who's been subjected to a lot of chemicals and a lot of toxins needs a little water. I drink at most, this week I had less than 3 ounces of water all week. In the summertime I'll have up to a half a cup a week or a half a cup a day. I'll need more solvents at that time. I need more of that to dissolve these compounds. You've been exposed to a lot. The further I get away from my chemotherapy, the more that leaves my body, the less water I need. So look at it that way. So water is helpful for you. And of course, the cleaner water, other than rainwater, is coconut water. However, in Asia, men will drink up to 2 cups of it a day only. Women will only drink a half to a whole cup because it causes bloating. Causes bloating, that means you're not absorbing that water into the cell. You need a whole balance of nutrients to carry the H2O into the cell for the cell to be able to hydrate itself and be able to use that water properly. Otherwise, it's going to dehydrate the cell. The more water you drink, the drier you're going to get. That's why people who drink are drinking. The more they drink, the more they drink. It's endless. It's a rat trap. The water companies love it. Good money for them. Okay? Ibrahim, do you have a question? Okay. I forgot your name. Chris, do you have a question?
I do, actually. My father had a 3-hour surgery yesterday. He had autism. And, that was his choice. But I want to give him some kind of dietary advice, some kind of plan he can follow. It's in line with the law diet.
Well, will he do it?
I think so. I think this might have been a turning point for him.
Well, probably the best thing for him to have would be liver. Liver shakes.
Okay.
So half liver, half milk, tiny bit of honey. And what I do is when I'm making those shakes, I'll take the liver, I'll cut it into little cubes, put it into the food processor and make a pate of it. Then I'll put half milk into that, put it in the blender and blend that. That way I don't get too many of those sinuous fibers around the blade.
And that's for And what is that?
That's to help him heal and get through everything. And a lot of eggs, at least 9 eggs a day, to recover from all the anesthetic and the other chemicals he's taking. He shouldn't be taking an antibiotic. It'll destroy his digestion. So if he wants an antibiotic substitute, 3 tablespoons of lime juice, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and 3 tablespoons of lime juice, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of honey. Mix that together and add it to about 2.5 ounces of sparkling mineral water. And you pour that mixture into the water, not vice versa. It's going to foam up a little bit. And you can have that once a day, for maybe 10, 12 days.
And what about cheese?
Cheese will help absorb poisons, absolutely. But it should be pretty simple. Because he's not going to digest well because he's had a lot of antibiotics. Probably intravenously, too. So, the liver shakes, milk shakes, eggs, cheese. Okay. Pardon? Yeah, but he had a surgery. Not a good idea. That'll cause detoxification deeper than what his body's already dealing with. Yeah, that's for later. Maybe after about 6 weeks. 4 or 6 weeks. Jeff, question.
My question was about mattresses. One, bomb. Yeah. And what are the effects?
We're talking about matricide. It's people who kill their mother.
No.
He's talking about mattresses.
Yeah.
Sleep on it.
You have a regular, like, polyurethane mattress.
Just want to see if everybody's awake.
Is there any problem sleeping on those?
Absolutely. Any mattress that is made of polyurethane, any kind of plastic, outgasses from your body heat. The PCBs, the phenochlorides, actually outgas. So
doesn't matter how old it is?
As long as you're not infected by molds. If you are, just make sure that you have like a down or down and feather bed, a thin coating on top of that will absorb the moisture, so it doesn't get in and doesn't cause molds in the mattress.
So, what kind of mattress are you recommending?
I have mine made by a futon company. So what I do is they never, in California, you have to have a fire retardant unless you have a doctor's note. So I got a doctor's note. So I took it to the futon company. I also took them organic cotton fabric, upholstery fabric. It takes 3.5 yards to do an 8-inch thick, 10% wool, 90% organic cotton futon. And they mix it together, and with that 10% wool mixed in there, it will stay softer. And mine's, I have 2 of them. One's about 15 years old and one's 10 years old, and they still have all of their bounce.
Do you have a spring underneath?
I don't have a spring because that's metal. When I have metal, when I use a spring, box spring, I hear radio sounds in my sleep. So, very sensitive to that. And usually it's a talk show that I hear. It's happening.
Unless you're on it.
Pardon?
I stopped kidding. I said unless you're on it.
Yes. Right.
What about...
Let me finish. So what I have is my box spring is not a box spring. It is a true rubber latex mattress that's made not too hard and not too soft. Those are the most expensive things they have made. Probably cost me about $1,200 to have the box spring made. You can get a futon if you provide them with a cover and ask them to make it. Probably have it made I had it made for $450, plus I paid for the material. That was another $100 to get organic upholstery very fine flannel, cotton, organic material. So it cost me about $500 and something. That was so many years ago. It probably cost you $1,000 to do it now. But a lot of these places that are selling things that aren't even as good as that are selling for $2,200, $2,300 for organic cotton and wool interiors of these mattresses. So it's a lot. It's better to go to a futon company and say, listen, mine were made in San Francisco and shipped down here. But I found a futon company on La Cienega Boulevard that made them. It's called the Futon Company. So it's molds. That is the problem. If you want to get rid of the molds, if you get a mold in there, you have to take it out and let it beat it in the sun. Let the sun break it down, and then vacuum it. Vacuum it 4 or 5 times, and then make sure again you have a feather blanket on top of that to absorb a lot of moisture. And of course, your sheets will be over that. So you need something so your mattress doesn't get wet.
You'll be okay with the regular mattress if you do that?
Not really. You're still going to outgas because there's going to be a temperature level on you that's probably about 100 degrees when you're sleeping, 99 to 100 degrees, and it's going to cause an outgas. If you do a lot of layers, let's say you put maybe a few inches or a few inch, 3-inch cotton futon on top of that with a cotton cover, then, like a 3-inch futon cover or some kind of yoga mat that's all cotton and that thick. If it were that thick and you put that on top of your plastic mattress, that would probably be okay. Those all have half polyester. At least half polyester. Most of them, cheap ones were all polyester covers. And a lot of them will use polyester fill, not all cotton fill. And then you want organic too, for the best quality. Do you have a question, Liz?
You answered it, I believe. I brought the 8-inch cotton futon on top of the mattress. Yes, so that's already been covered.
Well, if you have springs in there, metal springs.
No.
Okay.
No.
So wooden slats are okay? No,
Pardon?
A wooden bed, wooden slats are okay?
Wooden slats are fine.
Yeah.
Just a little harder.
Yeah. I'm bringing down.
Okay.
Okay. Because of the cancer, I noticed that my gums, as soon as I had cancer, that my gums were in pretty puffy and bad shape, and I've been using, of course, the same toothpaste that you recommend, which is the clay, the coconut cream, and the vinegar. Right. So I've been using that and flossing and water picking. Not too often though, because it's a lot of wear and tear.
You don't need to do that.
Right. Maybe even once or twice a week, something like that. But I noticed that over the last few years, I've been recovering, obviously, but it looks like some of my teeth on the inside are maybe a little brown, indicating maybe possible wear of the enamel exposing dentine. Is that possible? Is it correct? What should I do about it?
Well, anybody who's cancer has a tremendous amount of metals in their body, in their brain usually, and it's dumping out the teeth, and it will turn the teeth. Even though you're not losing the dentine, it will still turn them color.
So you mean I could still have the enamel in my mouth?
Still have the enamel, the dentine, and still cause them to be brown or gray. A lot of people who take cocaine or crack cocaine or set up crystal meth, there's so many metals in those compounds that it turns the teeth gray. And it's like 50% of the people who take those drugs have gray or brown teeth. Or gray and brown.
Yeah. But
All the
medical
other
drugs.
All the other drugs, vaccines, everything else.
Yeah. So in other words, my teeth could still be in good shape.
Absolutely.
As soon as
Because your
the
teeth look
cancer-
pretty good to me. Just remember that the most acids you put out are in the lower mandible and the back of the front teeth.
Yeah, that's exactly where those things
You got
are.
most of the acids and most of the toxins dumped there.
So you mean when the cancer cures, then what should happen is that
Well, it's not the cancer cure. That's getting rid of heavy metals your whole life. Could take 40 years before your teeth get perfect. You may get rid of cancer in 2 to 4 years.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So it doesn't mean I'm losing enamel, in other words.
No.
Okay.
You could be from the toxins, but it wouldn't be from the vinegar.
Okay.
You'd have to brush your teeth with a lot of vinegar every day to cause that problem.
Yes, thank you. I have 2 points. One point is that I've been waking up at 2 in the morning since November and staying wide awake until about 6:30 in the morning, and then I get sleepy, and then I want to go to sleep, and then I have to wake up again. So I'm wide awake for hours. I'm detoxing, right?
She's not sleeping through the night, not sleeping a lot. And what happens is the nervous system always does its begins detoxification as soon as the sun goes down. By midnight, it's full on. And it'll go to 5 o'clock in the morning. So there's a lot of people who can't sleep between the hours of like 2 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock. If you try to sleep and there's no way your body's going to let you because it needs to stay up and awake during that kind of a detoxification, you're just going to be frustrated and angry. So do something. Get up and read. Do something. Be productive in that time. And then go back to sleep at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning for an hour and a half before you have to go to work. And go to sleep about 8 o'clock. May get up at midnight, or 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock. Then do your productive time again. Take a nap in the morning.
I also found out recently that I have had a vintage stove that my landlord moved into my place. I found out recently it's been leaking gas. I had 4 gas leaks. I've been breathing in gas for 12 years.
You
Isn't that
cook?
nice?
Do you use it?
No, but I had it.
Yeah, but see, I turned
So
mine.
now it's off, but
Yeah, if you got a gas stove and you're not cooking, you cut that thing off right at the site outside the house of the apartment. There's no gas in my house. That stuff leaks too easily. A little bit.
So anything I can do, detoxing-wise, food-wise?
Well, vinegar helps break down those gases. Clay helps break down those gases in the body. Pardon? I put in warm water. Well, there is gas on my water heater, but that's in a pump room outside of my house. As long as you have that water heater room ventilated, if there's even a slight leak, it's not going to get into the house. All right. Oh, you said that I answered your question.
On another, on a
Well,
subject.
don't tell me that. Just give me your question.
Yes. I think you deliberately killed me. Anyway.
You said who heard him say? You answered my question.
Hey.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Where I'm at in my mental state and all. What proportions of meat, red versus white, do you recommend that I should have in my daily routine?
Well, you've got a lot of activity rings in your eyes, so I say very little red meat.
Okay.
Very little red meat. Maybe 2 meat meals a week. In fact, for you, I don't even suggest you have a whole red meat meal. That you have half poultry or seafood with half red meat.
Sure.
You could do that as many as 4 meat meals a week. But they're only half red meat.
Right. I got it. Okay. meals a week only. Okay.
The rest, poultry and seafood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, don't hear your name?
Meredith.
Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Do you have a question?
Yes. Two, actually. The first one was regarding hyperactivity and breastfeeding children and renal correctly, all that. So, what about the renal cell function?
You don't feed them any red meat.
Well,
You have to. Red meat is the big problem. Beef, lamb, venison, buffalo. Pardon?
what about adults that were that way as a child?
Same thing.
So no red meat.
No, just leave them off of red meat till they become calm, and then once they become calm, maybe only 2 red meat meals a week. I have people that never touch red meat. They're athletes. Very hyperactive people. So that's the best thing. And, some good milkshakes, calm them down. Not smoothies, milkshakes.
And then what about the detoxing of heavy metals? And I tie that into vertigo, dizziness, say, parsley. What else? What would you say as a intense detox of heavy metals?
Cilantro juice.
How much?
Yeah, but you could be a crazy person. So you have to be. A lot of people who do heavy cilantro become really uncontrollably crazy. Yeah.
So what amounts?
So I usually tell people to do no more than 5%. If they're as thin as you, never more than 5%, maybe only 2.5%.
Of that juice or
Of the whole juice. Yeah, of whatever juice they're drinking.
So then it would be celery, parsley, and cilantro.
Carrot. If they're having dizzy spells, they should have carrot. Because they're using up all their sugars and they're getting dizzy and not having it. So it'll be like let's say 30% or 25% carrot, 25% celery, 10% parsley, 5% cilantro, and about 25-35% cucumber puree. And berries help get rid of heavy metals in the body. So for a fruit meal or a smoothie, you put dark or light berries in there, depending upon the metal you're trying to get rid of.
Following one of the
Eating schedules.
in your book, the one that reads 3 times a day with green juices and not having any fruits, especially if there's a hypoglycemia problem. And
Well, if you're eating the fruit with the fat, the way it's suggested in there, they could have 1 piece of fruit every day. And that's fine. But again, not a really ripe fermented fruit. Has to be on the green side.
but it was berries.
Berries has very little sugar. Cherries have very little sugar.
So I'm saying use that fruit for the brain detox. Anything else for extreme dizziness?
Well, if you're getting extreme dizziness, you're too thin. Don't have enough fat on the body. You have no reserves. So your body's using.
I mean, I didn't have it. I mean, I was always from a condition. I think that's it.
Well, if you've been that way a long time, it gets worse every year because you have no reserves. So your body has to use the sugar that's available in the blood because there's no storage. If you're getting dizzy when you're just already standing and not just on the stand, then you've got an imbalance in the ear fluid.
Or I've been told it's nerve damage in your ear, but I mean,
Nerve damage won't cause that kind of imbalance. You have to have too much fluid in one ear, not enough in the other. Pardon? Well, you get a feeling of which side that too much water is in there, and then you put a hot water bottle on this side, and just perspire it out that side on that night. And it will perspire. Pardon? For that day, and then if you're drinking water, it's going to fill up again. You have to really drink small amounts of water or else it could fill again. Usually if one ear is filling more than the other, you've got a lot of heavy metals in that ear. It's swelling and the other one doesn't. So that may be a daily thing. Every night you may have to put a hot water bottle in your ear, depending on how much water you drink.
I told her to not drink goat milk because she's underweight.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Anybody who's thin should eat cows and drink cow's milk. Because goat's milk has adrenal precursors in it.
Also, you said that I don't need to go see him, that you know everything.
I've heard from other people he said that too. He's wrong.
And he was only going to charge me $50.
Oh, such a deal.
I've heard it from other people. I've heard it from other people. But everybody knows he's full of shit.
So, can you put goat's milk in the bathtub the same as cow's milk?
Absolutely.
Okay.
She asked if you could put any kind of milk in the bath. Yes, you can. Raw.
No, yeah, right. But I mean, yeah, goat's milk in the bath.
Allison, do you have questions? If you have an allergy to milk, you're going to have cramps in your intestines and stomach.
She might get it cold.
Pardon?
Get it cold.
Cold? Oh, you're not drinking it cold, are you?
No.
Yeah. That's not for you. You need more bacteria. You need it out for 8 hours, 10 hours, or you're going to have to immerse it in some hot water, to get it warm so it sits out for 2 hours, growing bacteria fast. Pardon? Yeah, because you'll have the bacteria proliferating in it. So break it down into finer molecules, so that when the toxins come through your skin, they will be fractionated. They'll be smaller molecules. Those are very large molecules that are coming through.
So before, when I was on the diet, I drank pasteurized milk. I would drink alcohol.
But that was because you were getting rid of the toxic. You were also detoxing the milk. But on this diet, you don't detox the milk. You can detox the old milk products still in your body. That's why some people will have allergies, think that they have allergies to raw milk, because it's detoxing the old stored casein that was cauterized that's still in their skin. The old pasteurized is still in your body. Yogurt is okay cold, but for anybody who breaks out, I don't suggest anything cold. You might do the sport drink cold, but that's it. Even the vegetable juice, I'm not sure I would do cold. Sport drink, I've got a hydration formula in the book that's 2 cups tomato puree and 1 cup cucumber. Well, the sport drink is a little different. It's more cucumber. It's 2 cups cucumber, 1 cup, and that's not in the book, and 1 cup tomato. Some of my tennis players just use a whole 3 cups cucumber puree, and then it's 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 to 4 tablespoons of honey, 2 to 4 tablespoons of coconut cream, and 2 to 4 tablespoons of dairy cream, and then 2.5 ounces of sparkling mineral water, and blend that all together. And then those who are actually performing and doing like 5 hours of sports in a tournament, I have them put an egg in every cup of that. Whip an egg, and then they sip that. But they add the egg into it right before they're going to drink it.
That cucumber puree is a blender or a juicer?
A blender. Yeah, it's a puree, so you don't want to separate the pulp from the fluid.
Can you leave out before it drinks 2 days without refrigerating it? Is that okay?
You can leave that out all day, not a problem. And,
Bottle of goat milk again?
well, it has adrenal precursors, so it causes people to be more hyperactive. So if they're thin, it's going to have a tendency to make them more irritable, be more hyperactive. Have you ever seen a calm goat? No such thing. They eat nails, they'll eat anything but millet. I was experimenting with goats and diets, and you know how millet is advertised as the most protein-rich grain and has all this other stuff in it. Has lots of biotin and niacin and all this stuff in it. When I fed it to herds of goats, the goats would eat it for 3 days maximum. If there was millet, I don't care if there was 2 tablespoons per 2.5 cups during milking time of their grain. If I just had 2 tablespoons of millet in there, they wouldn't eat any of it. They wouldn't even eat. And if your goat doesn't eat, there's really a problem. Pardon? Yeah. But like I said, thyroid is for emergency purposes. It shouldn't bother a person on a daily basis. If you fell from a tree and you bruised your chest and lungs, the thyroids would come into activity. That's why you have 2 thyroids and 4 parathyroids. Because if your lung and heart get bruised, you've got to have emergency hormones in there to keep those pumping. Otherwise, you're going to be food, dinner, or lunch or breakfast, back in the old days. So that's what that was for. So just because it reduces, like pine nuts, reduce thyroxine production. We don't need it anyway if you're eating a good raw diet. You don't need those hormones. Only if you're a sick person do you need extra energy from hormones because you're not producing enough the correct kind of fats and you're not utilizing those fats properly as fuel and energy. So eating the millet, those goats just did not want to freaking eat that food if there was millet in it. And I'd have to go in and take out all the freaking millet. Or, we use a lot of organic. Organic feed's expensive, very expensive. And, the goats just wouldn't eat it with the millet in it. So, millet, don't eat it cooked or in any other way. Okay, do you have a question? I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Mark.
You said to whip an egg with my green eggs. I just bought this style with quarter green eggs and have it. Is that okay?
That's fine.
It's just faster for me?
Yeah, well, it just would be more nutritious.
If I whip it?
Yeah, and you'd gain more weight if you'd have the egg in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question is, because I crave more honey, I've been eating more honey, but I'm getting pretty hyperactive. I feel almost like I'm high.
Yeah, then you should be having it with butter. Yeah. Well, you might have maybe 1-2 tablespoons a day by itself, but most of it should be with other foods.
That's what I do.
But not with a lot of meat. Not much with meat, though. No more than a tablespoon of honey with the meat. Because it's highly alkalinizing, it will neutralize your hydrochloric acid. It also is antibacterial. And bacteria is the main digester of meat, so you're neutralizing some of that bacteria. No more than a tablespoon of the meat.
Any kind of meat?
Pardon?
But any kind of meat?
Any kind of meat. Absolutely any kind of meat. All meats require hydrochloric acid and bacteria to digest them.
Why do you get rid of vinegar and meat?
The chemistry with red meat, it'll turn it into a fuel rather than building blocks.
The vinegar
With red meat, we'll turn it into a pyruvate. sugar protein to burn as fuel. And you want to eat most of your meat to gain strength and muscle mass, new cells, to heal.
So it's super digesting the meat, converting to...
No, it's a whole different chemistry. It converts it into a different thing.
Yeah.
Not that it digests any faster. It just breaks it into a whole new chemistry. Pardon?
Throws it into the Krebs cycle, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, throws it into citric acid cycle.
If the honey's mixed with butter or eggs, is that okay with the meat? Or you're talking about pure...
It's no more than a tablespoon of honey.
Also even then too?
Even then.
Okay.
How much meat?
Let's say a cup of meat. Do you have a question?
Yeah, one that you said earlier, which is you took the
Lime and lemon? Lemon adds fermentation bacteria. That's why it's good marinator. It increases fermentation and bacteria. Lime juice does just the opposite. It's antibacterial. Like when I had my motorcycle accident, if I had put lemon on that, I would have festered and had lost a lot of white blood cells, been pussy all over. But because I used the lime, it surrounded all that asphalt, and even though my skin healed, it came out through it. Not one white blood cell did I use, not one spot of pus, and all of that damage, and all of that asphalt. It just came out for the next 8 months through the skin. 2 pieces of asphalt built in the skin, and I could just peel it off like a wart. And only lime will do that. Raw? That means he's digesting everything. If we were healthy, we'd have all white turds. Yes. If you look at all of your wild dogs and cats, every feces they dump is completely white and turns into a white powder. Sometimes it's furry if they've eaten something furry. You know, so, but in doubt, it means that that baby is digesting perfect if it's all white. John, do you have a question? Oh, this is our host. Thank him for coming with me.
Back to refrigeration, how do you know what to refrigerate and what not to refrigerate? For example, sometimes I run out of eggs that I purchased at Boston, so I have to go to Whole Foods and order eggs in the refrigerator. Does that mean that I have to put them in the refrigerator, or can I leave them out?
No, you better leave them out. It just takes about 48 hours for them to get the bacteria level back, but it will never be as if they were never refrigerated. Oh. See, if you never refrigerate an egg, it can still hatch. Once the egg is refrigerated, it will never, ever, ever hatch. It destroys the reproductive ability of an egg.
So,
but still, you want bacteria to break down those eggs, those particles, so you can assimilate it better.
So, for example, the diet you put me on with all those drinks that I make and everything in the morning for the day or for the next couple of days, does all that stuff belong in the refrigerator until I'm ready to drink it and then keep it out for a couple hours before? Or
well, I leave my milk out. You know, I leave my milk out at least 12 hours before I'm going to drink it. And everybody should leave it out 4 or 5 hours before, 3 hours. 2 hours absolutely minimum. And if you have skin conditions, it should be 4 or 5 hours minimum.
What's the problem with drinking cold milk?
When you drink cold milk, the stomach contracts. You don't secrete the hydrochloric acid, so the molecules of protein aren't fractionated, so the bacteria can get in there and eat easily. No. And then what happens is some casein and lactate will be absorbed in the lower part of the duodenum, get right into the blood, and cause some problems.
Now, what about the other drinks, like, for example, the green drink?
That can be drunk cold.
Okay,
some people don't. He gets headaches if he drinks it cold.
I see. It's an individual.
Yeah, individual thing. But when I drink mine, I put it in my mouth cold, but don't swallow it until it's warm.
In those cases,
Milk cake should always be room temperature. Or unless you hold it in your mouth until you swallow it. But even if you do that, you're not going to digest it as well. If you want optimal digestion, you want to leave the food out at room temperature for at least 5 to 8 hours prior. I make all of my food in the morning for the whole day. Nothing stays refrigerated except my vegetable juice. So it is out for the entire day. By the time I get to my evening meal, it's been out 12, 14 hours.
That's everything. You eat everything.
Everything.
But you could make the vegetable yourself.
You can, but it's going to start fermenting. It's better to put that in a bowl of hot water if you want to warm it. Okay.
Better to leave it out.
You lost that young lady. Oh, she went in there, huh? Okay.
You got this one.
All right, I'm going to go around again.
You got this one to go.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Are you interested in trying the pig intestines for the trichinosis?
So what about the trichinosis?
Well, I'm interested in trying the pig intestines.
You want to get the trichinosis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you eat it when it's fresh, it's just been harvested, or do you eat it over a few days, or?
It's always better to eat as much as possible as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because the oxygen starts killing them.
Yeah.
And what I do is I order a pound section of the small intestine from a pig from Amos Miller.
Yeah.
Miller Organic Farms. And I get it. He always sends 2 pounds. I don't know whether he doesn't like the measure or what, but he always sends 2 pounds. Way too much, so I'll share it with other people. But usually a half a cup is all it takes.
All right.
Yeah. If people have been on a long fruit diet for a long time, it will take more. Because all those alcohols will kill for sometimes a week or two. So it's better not to put it in too cold in a chilly area, but not a refrigerator, because it will make them dormant. The trickworm.
So you eat what? More than half a cup if you're eating a lot of fruit. You eat more than half a cup.
No, you eat a half a cup at a time.
Yeah.
So I say maybe every 3 days for a couple of weeks.
All right.
Even go into 3 weeks if you had that.
Yeah.
So just to make sure.
What's the benefit of this?
Pardon?
What's the benefit of this?
Well, when Dr. Joel Weinstock, a gastroenterologist, noticed the pigs at the University of Iowa, he noticed they were very sickly. They were in a very clean environment. Everything was pristine. And he was raised on a farm. He knew how the pigs lived, and they were always healthy. So he compared the digestive tracts between the pigs that were sick at the university and the pigs that were in captivity at the university that were in a sterile environment. And he found that the pigs in sterile environment at the university had no trickworm, whipworm. It was trickworm. So he filtered some out from the healthy pigs at the farm, gave it to the pigs at the university, and they were well in a week. So he decided that he would try it with humans. So he went for a license to do it from the FDA on humans, and they said he could do it on 6 people, but they had to have suffered with IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome, for at least 10 years, and up to 32 years with no relief from the medical profession, from the allopathic system. So he got 6 people under those circumstances, and they all suffered terrible pain and diarrhea, vomit, just from drinking water. He picked his worst cases. He gave them all the trickworm. In 5 days, 5 of them were completely asymptomatic. And these were people who had suffered every day, no matter what they ate or drank, they had severe problems, gastritis. So just from having that parasite, remember the parasite, the trickworm, in any normal intestinal worm is there to digest your food fast. A parasite can eat 100 times its weight in 24 hours. Bacteria can only eat 50 times their weight. So your parasites are your best digester. They're also your best janitors if that's what you need. So they can work twice as fast. You get healthy twice as fast if you have a good trickworm. And you infuse that by eating pig's intestines. Because the two animals on the planet that almost all of them have trickworms unless you're in a sterile environment like we have with awful food. The humans and pigs have all the trickworms. Okay? Yes, John? No, I never throw any food away. I'll give it to the coyotes. I'll share it with the coyotes. I have people who give me high meat. Lots of people will give me because they don't want to eat anymore. They've had enough, and they'd rather start with a fresher black because it's way too stinky and liquid. But that's when it's the best because it's already been reduced to a liquid. The bacteria has broken it down, so all of those nutrients, even though it's foul as foul can be, and no fouler than what's in the intestines, if it were concentrated, and you eat that and it goes right into the body and fulfills the body. That's why a depressed person in 10 minutes can get happy that quickly because it's all pre-digested. But I get so much of it that I share it with the coyotes or the ravens.
Well, what if I don't have any coyotes or ravens in my house?
Well, just put it out on the sidewalk and a dog will come by. Put it out at night. Some dog will come by and get it. Or cat. And I guarantee you they will love you. When I lived in Venice and Beverly Hills, I used to put it out just at the edge of the sidewalk.
Should I give it to my cat? Give the high meat to my cat.
Cats will
My 17-year-old cat?
Cats indoors will not eat high meat. Only outdoor cats. Then she might. Most cats like things fresh. Dogs love things rotten. But if a cat is sick, not really well, it will eat the high meat. Okay, we're going to go around quickly. Now I'm going to answer quicker the question. Question. Okay. Just go ahead. I'll give you two.
Can you go over like the seafood? This diet. Money is always a consideration. What is it wild caught good enough, or like seafood? Like is a bigger fish better than smaller fish?
It doesn't matter as long as it does not matter what kind of fish you eat, as long as it's the ocean wild caught. Scallops and clams, as long as they're not coming from the Gulf of Mexico, are fine, even though they're farmed, because all they do is put a fence in the ocean, and it's still fed by the ocean and nothing else.
And oysters.
Oysters, clams, and scallops. Shrimp, they can farm. Pardon? All of the ships that go through the Panama Canal, and they wait there for weeks to get through, and the U.S. Navy dumps their nuclear waste, and the Navy, I've had them when I lived on Jekyll Island, Georgia, that naval base in Jacksonville, Florida. They used to brag. I would hear them bragging, the sailors bragging about how they're dumping their nuclear waste from the submarine right there offshore, 50 miles, 20 miles offshore. All the way in the Gulf and all the way down from, Jacksonville all the way down to the Bahamas or down to Cuba.
It's never frozen.
Well, some fish, your northern fish can be frozen, but not your tropical fish. Cod. If the salmon is northern salmon caught in the winter, it's up there in the cold too. Anything's cold up there.
What about Scottish salmon?
Scottish salmon is mostly farmed.
Okay.
Not a good idea. Yeah. Question.
My grandson is 3. He's not really fully in any diet, whatever. But I read in your book that children under 15 should not really drink vegetables.
That's correct.
So, for a 3-year-old, what would be the ideal diet?
That all depends upon the child. And if they're not on cooked food, who knows what kind of toxins they've had and what kind of vaccines. But normally children, very basically, raw milk and eggs and honey. That's all they need until they're about 7 years old. And the child she's talking about is 3, so and a little bit of meat once in a while is fine.
So, when he went to the doctor, whatever, he said that he had anemia, a little bit of anemia. So they got worried about giving him more meat.
Well,
He was drinking a lot of milk and raw milk and not much than that.
okay. Whenever the doctors come up with anemia, they're looking at hemoglobin. Again, figures that they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. It is a figure to get you to take some kind of ferrous sulfate, some kind of iron supplement. It's always about taking something to remedy the problem. If the child doesn't act like anemic, if the child isn't going around like this, the child's not anemic. If that child's got energy, it's not anemic. You just tell the doctor to go stick his head up his butt. And just leave him alone. I just hate that. Doctors, because the pharmaceutical industry tells these doctors that we have to fit in these measurements. And it isn't true. I've got a fellow who was diagnosed as leukemic because his white blood cell count is off the chart and his red blood cell count is as low as a child's. He runs marathon races every year. He runs 7 miles a day. Does he have anemia? He doesn't eat any red meat. He only eats fish and poultry. Does he have anemia? No. That is his system. His system is perfect at that stage. In fact, if he eats red meat, he gets hyperactive and crazy. But yeah, he's got anemia? No way. Okay? Do you have a question?
Yeah, I've got some high meat that I started. It's as old as a year. If I start opening it up again, will it continue the process, or is that pretty much shot? Because
no. When I did Ripley's Believe It or Not, I was eating up to a year and 3 months old meat. It was all liquid and black and Greek. So
you can continue anytime.
Like I said, it never really goes bad.
Okay.
As long as it's raw, it will never be bad. It'll just be completely pre-digested and black liquid. And really raunchy smelling.
Even if it's not in the refrigerator during that time?
Even if it's not in the refrigerator. If molds grow on it, you may have trouble with it. There's molds as well as the bacteria. If you start having mold layers on it, it may cause some detoxification. It's happened to me a few times.
Get back to me.
Okay.
Yes. What I've been doing lately is I've been buying past expiration milk from organic pastures.
What I'm going to ask everybody to do is not tee it up, get right to the question because we only have 20 minutes.
Okay. So anyway, I buy. What I do is put it in bottles. Right now I've got 12 or 15 gallons of organic pastures milk in jars outside. What it does is it either turns into yogurt or cottage cheese. But what I'm trying to do this time when I bought my 35 half gallons was to I used to keep them in the refrigerator and then put them outside,
You're going to have to get your question.
Okay, but now I'm letting them sit out for weeks, and it's in yogurt to cottage cheese. Is that okay?
That's fine. And if it's in cottage cheese, you just blend it very briefly, 3-4 seconds, and you're going to have milk.
But I don't. I just eat the cottage cheese and I save the whey.
That's fine. You can do that.
But it can sit out for like a month at a time, this milk.
Doesn't
that's
matter.
Turned to yogurt and cottage cheese.
I'm going to say it for the 100th time. If it's a raw food, it never goes bad. Dairy never goes bad. It just turns into cheese and whey. Period. That's it. And those are good too. Okay? Question.
Come back.
Okay. Jim.
What's the best middle of the night meal?
Best middle of the night meal is something with protein in it. No vegetable juice isn't going to satisfy your protein need. So egg, meats, or a milkshake, or just milk.
Egg and meat? Or just...
Doesn't mean no. Just one or the other. I wouldn't mix meat and egg if I go to sleep with it. Pardon? cheese with honey might be okay because you'll digest some of the proteins, but probably I wouldn't do that. I would eat some cheese and an egg, cheese and a milkshake, or cheese and meat.
Well, roll butter.
Pardon?
Roll butter.
Roll butter has no protein in it.
Do you just recommend starch? You don't really talk about that anymore? Or is that...
Well, like I say in the book, starch is a nut formula. If the nut formula doesn't work, then you go to some kind of cooked starch. And you eat as much cooked starch, as much raw butter as you do with the cooked starch, or some kind of fat. Butter is always best. And with the experiments that I've been doing in the last 3 years with different kinds of starches, your rice is the best. The Asians have it right. Rice is always digested best, causes less toxicity.
White doesn't matter. White. Red.
Doesn't matter.
What is narcolepsy? What do you think?
Narcolepsy is, what do you think?
What do you think it is? Well, I mean, but where do you think it's coming from?
Narcolepsy, usually it's coming from some kind of aluminum stored in the brain and somewhere in the sleep center. Aluminum destroys the zeta potential. The zeta potential is ability for nutrients to remain suspended in fluid. You see little fishies going around in the aquarium in the water. That's the zeta potential. You put liquid mercury in that, the fish will hit the bottom and not be able to swim. Same thing happens in the brain. So, and if it gets to the sleep center, all the firing is not going to get where it's going and you're just going to fall asleep. Everything shuts down. If the mercury, if the aluminum gets active. Sometimes mercury can cause it. And to get rid of aluminum, you need some raspberries and coconut cream with a tiny bit of dairy cream. Okay? Dairy cream. So you're having half a cup of berries, raspberries with 3 tablespoons, 2.5, 3 tablespoons of coconut cream, 1 tablespoon of dairy cream. Well, I think you'll change it as long as you're going to leave your milk out longer, or if you put it in warm water and then leave it out for 2 hours. You might put, like a couple of drops of honey in for a cup of milk, just to help, it digest a little bit better, and all that might lower the detox through the skin. And if you're detoxing heavily through the skin, it may be very difficult for a while to gain weight, unless you're having 1 or 2 whole moisturizing formulas. And at least half of moisturizing formula with each meat meal.
Okay. I just had my eyes examined. No change in 2 years, but they said a lot of floaters.
A lot of what?
Floaters.
Yeah.
Nicotine.
Well, the eyes and the neck and the ears have the least circulation, blood circulation in there. You've got this little pathway going into this big eyeball. Same with the ears and the same with the neck. Big brain, lots of blood going up in there, and this little passage. So anywhere it's restricted, especially if your body's overweight, you're using your nutrients for a lot of other things, your eyes are going to take the hit for that. That would sleep on a slant would definitely help. Absolutely. Sleeping on a slant. Yeah.
Does that help snoring?
Pardon?
I've heard that one is the snoring, sleeping on a slant.
I don't know that.
I just keep that shit.
It does work. Sleeping on a slant stops snoring. Oh, yeah. Do you have another question, John?
Yeah, quick question. Other than, in terms of relaxing the muscles and nervous system, is there anything else besides cream, milk, cooked avocado, and cooked raspberries that helps that?
Well, hot baths, warm, any kind of warmth will relax the nervous system. Any kind of warmth. Hot water bottles in your bed, or wearing a robe, just keeping warm all the time will relax your body, the nervous system.
Okay.
You're welcome. I'm getting to those people who didn't get 2 questions answered. Everybody in the back got 2 questions answered. There's a few people here that did not. Yes.
Okay, I sometimes get sores in my mouth or get puffy or a bite on something and...
Now you're getting very acidic blood. You're getting maybe over you're getting about under 5.5 acidic blood. I remain 5.5 blood, urine, saliva. And that's normal. That's 5.5 to 5.8. You're getting too acidic at that time. You need to drink more sport drink or drink a little bit more vegetable juice or put a little bit more parsley in your vegetable juice. Either one of those will help. Also, I went years ago when I wrote that book, I wasn't using cucumber puree. I was using cucumber juice. But after all the years, I noticed that in some of us, we were losing a lot of collagen because we don't eat much fruit. And fruit's a good collagen source. So since we cut out all that fruit and we detox mostly through the skin, we weren't replacing collagen. So that's when I started using cucumber as the bland fruit pulp for the precursors, and it's helped tremendously. So whenever you're looking in my book and it says to have, something like cucumber, or always put cucumber in your juice, but puree it. Always peel it, but always puree it. Don't juice it. Okay? John?
I've had 8 ounce of juice at a time. I've tried 12. It seems like a little bloated. That's a little too much. Go back to 8. How do you say about that?
You have to play it on that. I do the same thing. Sometimes I can have 16 ounces at a time. But if I do that, I can only drink juice once a day. You just have to play with it for your 16 individual.
You have to go slow with that.
Pardon?
You have to take it real slow, right?
Which slow?
All that amount of juice.
Oh, yeah, it may take me half an hour to drink that much juice.
Why not to juice the cucumber? Why not?
You want the pulp to replace the collagen under your skin. If you don't, you're not going to have the elasticity. See, since I started losing collagen under here, so my skin started detaching from my, the connective tissue was deteriorating. Now it's nice and tight, like when I was 20 years old, my teens. See how tight that is? And that's just from a year of drinking the juice with the cucumber puree rather than the juice. Okay? Because you need so many nutrients so often that if you drink a juice, you can get undernourished, you can have more pain, you'll have more diarrhea, you have more vomit, you can induce all kinds of things. So it's better not to have juice when you're going through a heavy detoxification like that. Some people might get away with a half a cup or a whole cup, but still, if it causes more diarrhea and vomit right away, you may not want it.
Okay, so what do you recommend to alleviate snoring if one doesn't want that?
The way he wants to know how you eliminate snoring. You go to Vietnam and they'll take a scraper and scrape your sinuses out.
Oh, great.
Really, that's what they do. Snoring comes from you've got a very saggy sinus. When you're lying back, that sinus sags back into your throat passage, and it reduces the amount of airflow. So you suck in a lot more air to get past those sinuses. Unless you're breathing through your mouth, usually you don't snore so much. But if you're breathing through your nose, you have to go past all of that sagging sinus. So you can sit up, or you do things to tighten your sinuses.
It's bad to your mouth.
Pardon?
It's not bad to breathe through your mouth.
Well, you're not filtering as well, but still, you'll stop. You won't snore as much. But what you can do is you can snort a little bit of water, good mineral water, with a tiny bit of vinegar. Let's say you're snorting, 3 ounces or 2 ounces of water with a quarter of a teaspoon of vinegar only. And you snort that, and it will start breaking down a lot of the dead tissue in the sinuses and cause them to shrink over a long period of time. It may take a year or two, but that will do it. If you start getting sore throats, you're detoxing too many dead cells at once, and you're not creating enough mucus. So stop it until that subsides, and then start snorting again. And you only once on each side is all it takes, and it should come right out of the mouth.
Oh, just one snort.
One snort in each nostril.
Can I take the sinusitis too?
Pardon?
Can I take the sinusitis too?
It depends on the sinusitis. If you're not creating mucus, it's not going to help.
Okay.
Vinegar, in fact, the vinegar will make it worse because it's a scar mark. Yeah.
A good friend of mine is dealing with a really heavy-duty case of psoriasis. It's growing on his back and his abdomen and his arms, and it seems to be multiplying. I've been
2 to 3 lubrication formulas a day. That's what usually does it pretty quickly. Okay, yes.
I don't know, lately in airplanes, long flights, I start getting agitated. It's like irrational fear.
It's not irrational. It is not irrational. You've got jet fuel. You've got kerosene in the compartment. You wear a mask. Cotton mask. You get a cotton mask. They have a lot of them in China. That's where I got mine. But you can go online to a site called I Want to Breathe, I think it is. Something like that. Something about breathing. Put in mask breathing. And you'll come up with a website where they make all cotton, organic cotton masks. And that's the thing to use and wear. It's what I wear. And it makes a whole difference. Usually people who get fatigue, from jet lag, it is the airplane exhaust in the plane. I used to get terrible neck aches until I realized that. And I started wearing the mask, now no problem.
So that's the best for chemical sensitivity as well, like the perfume.
Absolutely. Yep. If I go on a golf course, I wear a mask. People freak out because I wear a mask. And that's one of the most polluted environments there is.
From the carts?
No, from the carts, but they put so many chemicals on the fairways and the greens. Atrocious. Okay, one last one.
What do you recommend for cold feet, chronic cold feet? Feet always cold, everything else normal.
Well, that usually means there's poor circulation in the feet, or you've got a lot of metals that have drifted down and clumped in the feet. And if you touch steel when it's cold, steel will be as cold as ice. So that's usually what's happening. If both your hands and feet are cold at the same time, you've got a mineral deficiency, and you eat cheese and honey together for several days, all day long, a little bit at a time, all day long, and that'll usually get the warmth of the feet and the hands going. Pardon?
Having more minerals?
Yeah, minerals, yeah. Digested minerals. Pardon? No. It's always 1/3 honey to the cheese. So it's 1 tablespoon of honey, 1 tablespoon of cheese to 1 teaspoon of honey. Sometimes I tell you people even use less honey. But that's the highest ratio, 3 to 1. Okay, everybody's had 2 questions, right? Oh, there's some dairy, and what else do you have? Okay, so there's some food here. Somebody wants some food here. It's available. Now we're going to, wait a minute everyone, hold on. We're going to dance, if you want to dance, for about an hour. So, we can have those people who want instructions, will get instructions. Of the people who already know how and just want to dance, they can take another part of the floor and just dance.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Jill and John made some recipes on this CD. It's a video. So, you can purchase that. Yeah, okay. So just come and see Jill if you'd like one of those. Video